I now have my peat blanket that I have been waiting for a couple of months. I've used it for a few days and I am thrilled with the depth and the quality of the sleep that I experienced. I'm also thrilled this lovely day. It was cool to the point that I actually needed to have something warm on my feet because the tile was so cold. And I had some long sleeves on this morning. What a treat. We're starting to move into fall. And what a perfect time to start thinking about the quality of our sleep as we move closer into the time when we're supposed to be sleeping the most, our winter, our hibernation time. And let me just tell you that the painting behind me is a special type of painting that was done with watercolors that were made with all natural vegetable dyes. And it's a special type of painting that Rudolf Steiner taught called veil painting. And although it's not easy to necessarily pick it out when you first look at it, because honestly, when I first saw it, I thought it was a baby in a cradle. When I met the incredible artist, Malsby Kimball, he may not be alive any longer because he was in his 80s at the time, and this was like when I was in my 20s and I'm almost 70. So I doubt if he's still on this earth, but he has so profoundly influenced artists and Waldorf teachers everywhere. So if you haven't heard that term, Waldorf school, that is a specific type of school that Rudolf Steiner developed to honor the stages of development of the human being. And the painting actually is of Jesus and the disciples, which was a really big surprise to me. The larger figure that's more golden is Jesus, and these more reddish and magenta color ones are the disciples. It's kind of amazing. And you just do one layer of watercolor at a time and let it dry before you put the next layer on. It's done wet. The entire thing is wet, and there's all kinds of symbology that Steiner talks about regarding water, our internal water of our body, the relationship to the kidneys, the relationship to birth. It just goes on and on. Steiner understood profound levels of spirituality and how it relates to physicality. The peat products you'll hear about much more because if you take a look at our previous interview with Patrick Steensma on the peat products, which was done in July, I believe the 16th, we go into far more depth about Rudolf Steiner and his talking about the indications of how healing and beneficial peat is. And you'll also, if you look at my YouTubes when I'm talking about COVID virus and the relationship of our subtle energy bodies, in particular the etheric body, and how we can affect it, protect it, by using peat. So here is the primary piece, but first I want to show you this. This is the actual duvet that I put this beautiful blanket into, and this is a queen size one. And here are some samples of the amazing workmanship and what's inside of it. And this is peat fiber from a very special bog in Europe, and it is blended with organic wool, and it's made into this wonderful batting that then becomes the internal part, the healing part of these blankets And in this case, this is a much thicker one, or I should say much denser one. And this one is designed to be used as a cover. You can see the mattress cover. You can see the elastic on the end, so it would go over the mattress and protect the mattress, so you could have something between the mattress and you. And then you could also, if you wanted to, have a blanket. This is the summer blanket, which is plenty for here in Austin. And this is a much thicker one, which is the winter thickness. And it is very warm. I have the summer one, and I have for years used down, and this is the first time in over 20 years I've slept with something other than down, and it's really very, very cooling. I mean, it will keep you warm. And but the most important thing that it will do is it will protect your delicate energetic system, particularly from electrical toxic things, be it dirty electricity or Wi-Fi or anything else. People are talking about weaponized energetics, things that are in our Wi-Fi these days, in different chemicals that are being disseminated. I don't know if it's true, but I do sense quite a difference in the quality of my sleep. And people who have nightmares speak about how in short periods of time they notice that they no longer have nightmares. Children sleeping with this end up sleeping much happier. Oftentimes the children who would be waking up screaming and crying and wanting to sleep with their parents are comfortable sleeping all night in the bed. Steiner also talked, by the way, about using beeswax candles to sleep with at night if you have a child who has nightmares or great fear of going to sleep. And I would imagine that would be beneficial for us as adults who have experienced severe trauma as well. Our next YouTube is going to be talking about trauma and some very exciting work I've been using from an amazing neurological researcher named Stephen Porges. But I can't imagine that he would not find changes, and it would be, I'd love to talk with him about seeing if he'd be willing to test this out himself, in our resilience of our autonomic nervous system when we sleep with something that is so protective of our etheric bodies, as these lovely blankets are. So, for everyone who's in a situation where they're sleeping, or where they live, particularly in a high-rise building, where you have no control over the amount of Wi-Fi that's being used in the building, and the possibilities of constantly being exposed to Wi-Fi, something like this can be incredibly beneficial for you. For years, I talked to people about using what we call a canopy that's more, that cuts out all of the electrical pulses, like a Faraday cage. And it's basically fabric that has metal threads in it, sometimes silver, sometimes stainless steel. But the idea being that it would block out harmful electrical effects. The only thing is that Steiner talks to us about how there are very important healing frequencies that come to us from the planets, from Jupiter, from the moon, from the sun, from Venus, from Mars, from all the different planets that we need to help support the fullness of who we are as humans, to have more flexibility, to have all of the influences and how they will support us karmically in our fates as we have chosen them based on our birth times and all of that. And it's questionable if we're in a Faraday cage, if we might be blocking out those beneficial experiences as well. So another one of the things that Peter is making available to us, and he lives in the Netherlands, so he's working with people who are Steiner alchemists and working with Steiner's indications. By the way, he talked about using peat for this kind of protective purpose when he was still alive in the beginning of the early 1900s. He spoke about how susceptibility to flus and plagues and all that sort of thing has everything to do with our body's protection of our electromagnetic fields, our subtle fields, our etheric and astral fields. And that's what the blankets are designed for. This is a gorgeous piece of handmade fabric, and they're using wool. They've made yarn, as you can see, they've woven it. They have numerous choices of beautiful colors. I particularly liked this one. And what I'm doing with this, although it is quite itchy because it's real wool for people who are sensitive to wool, is when I sit with my computer, I put it on like this to help protect me from all of the harmful effects of the computer. And I've spoken to you many times about how harmful laptops are, particularly to, if you're sitting them on your laps, for our sexual organs, but definitely our intestines and our whole viscera in the front of our body being directly impacted by the fabric, by the actual computers. So this can be protective. And I'm talking to Patrick about perhaps trying to make available to us yarn that is made from this peat fabric. So let me show this to you. This is the wool that the yarn would be made from, and this is blended amazingly with the peat. So you can see, if you look very closely, little bits of the peat that have not been fully blended in. It's almost impossible to fully blend in every bit of it. But the peat wool can be used to knit with or crochet with. And one of the things that I would love to see is that we have something that's made that we can put around our throats to protect our thyroids in particular, because we have those computers just affecting some of us all day long. If you're working in front of a computer like that, affecting the thyroid, and we are seeing such a rise in thyroid issues. And true, we are using so many horrible things to the thyroid in our daily life, like fluoride in our water and things like that. But this can help to protect us from the external electrical influences that can be harmful. And we're receiving them not only from our cell phones, but many people are using LED lights or fluorescent tube lights that are also quite harmful. And this will help to protect us from what we call junk light, as well as supporting us with our protecting this delicate tissue of the thyroid. And of course, I love the idea of having something that's also going to cover our thymuses, so deeply involved with our immune system. So that's a little bit about that. This is quite messy, but I'm going to show it to you. This is actually the peat itself, and it's quite, well, this one is not as bad as the other one, but here's little bits of it that has fallen off of this particular piece, just to give you an idea. So sometimes when you're using the blanket over a long period of time, you'll have a little bit of this peat that actually makes it through. But this fabric is amazing. It comes from Lithuania. It's organic cotton, and it's an extremely tight weave. The count is very, very high to help prevent any of the peat from coming out and being on your bed. It will not hurt or discolor your bed. You just would need to probably vacuum it every now and again, which is always a beneficial thing anyway, just to help with the sloughing of skin that just naturally happens and potential mites and things. But we also recommend that you put your wonderful blanket inside of a duvet, and that's what I have here. This is a duvet, and so that would, if you do end up with any exudate, which is going to be really tiny if anything, because this is amazing fabric, then you'll have it inside your duvet. And the other thing is you can just wash the duvet often and not need to wash the actual blanket very often. And of course, when it's sunny and warm outside, you could take it outside and basically disinfect anything by leaving it out in the sun for the hot part of the day. It's really, our sun does so much for us that we don't consider. I know you know that I have continuously spoken, but I don't think I could talk about it enough, about how important it is to find yourself spending the early morning hours when the sun is rising, or as much time as you possibly can in exposure to the early morning sun, dependent upon temperature, as much of your skin as possible, your face facing the sun. You don't have to be looking into it. I recommend that you don't, but you can look just a little to the side of it for some of the time, and that will really help your body to receive all of the healing frequencies of light that are only available to us in the early morning sun. And I know I've spoken to you ad nauseum about the benefits of this for your body to receive, to build and create its own melatonin. So your time in the early morning sun will help you sleep better, as of course with this wonderful blanket. So they're on the pricey side, but they're really a lifetime investment and truly worth it for your health. I mean, if you think about how much money people spend on things like wine and coffee drinks from different coffee shops, within, I don't know, probably 3 months to a year, depending upon how much you imbibe, you would have one of these paid for if you looked at the expense of how much you're putting out for those sort of things. So I'd love, if you're interested, to actually talk to you about your needs, what would be the most effective product for you, and show you the different products online and help you to make a selection for you and your family. And of course, you're always welcome, if you live in the area, to stop by and to feel these products yourself and get a sense of what they are. And if you're energetically sensitive, you'll be able to feel what they do. You can use this if you want to make clothing. And in Europe, they do make available things like jackets and vests and things made out of this, but they haven't made it available in the United States yet. I don't know how long it would be. Right now, this has been a huge undertaking for Patrick to get these blankets out to us and this fabric. But we're going to try and get the yarn available, and you can buy this type of fabric by the yard, I believe. So if you want to do some sewing or take it to your tailor and have them sew for you, you could do that. I just do want to tell you, if you're sensitive to wool, this is pure wool and has a pretty good sense of itch to it without lining it. Okay? And they do recommend, if you're going to line it, when they do linings for you, if you were to order the fabric and ask that it be lined, they'll line it with pure silk. So yesterday when I was talking with Patrick, we were speaking about his friend who's an alchemist and how he makes all of these amazing products. And almost everything he makes has some degree of peat in it because of its extraordinary support to the energetic systems of the body. And he was also talking about how you can just take some peat and wrap it around like a joint that's sore, and it can really help to reduce the pain and inflammation in that area. Many of you over the years may have heard of something called moor mud, and peat bogs are basically where moor mud comes from. And it's also an extremely high product that's got quite an amount of peat in it, and used for healing all sorts of skin issues, diseases, baths people take in it. I mean, it's, especially in Europe, they literally have spas that are all based on the use of moor mud. So those are just a few little things you might want to keep in mind. And then I just want to point out to you, I hardly ever put on any makeup, but my lipstick is from Hauschka. And today I used a little bit of mascara because we were doing this show. And those are also Hauschka products. And with Rudolf Steiner products, there's this, Hauschka is a company. Dr. Hauschka and Rudolf Steiner were very close friends, and Steiner was a great influence in how Hauschka made all of his products, in alignment with the deeper understanding of the spiritual needs of the human being for its health. And a big understanding of Steiner's is about moon phases and different times of the year when different planets are affecting us more. And also geometry, the geometrics of how placing something in a specific geometric design will help to make it stronger. And these sciences were understood by Hauschka, and Willada is also another company that is Steiner-based. So if you're looking in particular for things like baby products, diaper rash products, skincare products for you, bath products, essential oil products, things like that, if you can get your hands on Hauschka or Willada, you'll be buying something that's beyond pure. Everything that goes in them is biodynamically grown, which is another huge science. I know I've mentioned it a few times, but I recommend that you look into it a little bit. It understands how to support the microorganisms in the soil and the life in the soil so that our plants, our foods, our whatever it is that you're imbibing or using on your skin, which goes directly into your bloodstream, that those are of the purest level. And women in particular are known, but men as well, for using lots and lots of products on their skin and hair and nails the majority of which are loaded with cancer-producing toxins, things that are very detrimental to the liver, to the kidney, to the overall immune system, lymphatic system. And if you were to make choices based on things like hauschka and walata, you'll be making choices that will actually support your health rather than being detrimental to you. And I think you'll find they are quite lovely and work really well compared to most things. So I invite your questions. I invite your phone calls. I cannot tell you how lovely these products are. Christmas is coming up. It would be lovely to give your family or yourself the gift of something that will really help your health, because nothing is more important to us than a deep sleep for supporting our bodies to be able to heal itself. The phone number is 512-698-7009. I highly encourage you to phone me or text me. Texting is always a great idea if you don't reach me, because it's much easier for me to see that within an hour or so of your text, and I can get back to you quickly. I don't always catch all my emails. And our website is awakeninghealth.com. Thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to sharing with you and hearing from you.